who dedicated his life to changing this country for the betterment of everyone. He was an entrepreneur. He was a businessman. He was a graduate of Ohio State University. He was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and he was chapter president on the campus at Ohio State University. He was a philanthropist. He gave generously to the community, to the Black community specifically. He was a community collaborator and organizer. He was a Baltimore City councilman. He was a civil rights leader. And he was somebody who needs to be remembered in history for his achievements and his accomplishments, and for what he did to provide opportunity, not just for himself, but for me and you, and for all future generations. He was also a pioneer. The accomplishments that he achieved were actually achieved by him, and nobody had achieved what he did before. So I'm going to give, in my synopsis, 3 reasons why Henry G. Parks Jr. needs to be memorialized. First reason is, as any entrepreneur knows, you start your business with a vision. You build everything around it. He had a vision early on, as early as high school, from what I have been able to gather in my research. The vision was to break the color barrier in business. He was preoccupied with this whole notion of being a Black business person who was not segregated to the Black community. He developed a mission to carry out this vision, and the mission was to cross into the white consumer market with some sort of service or product, while simultaneously creating a business that would provide equal opportunity for his employees and equal advancement for all people of all color and for women. He dedicated his life to this pursuit. This was not a small thing. To do something like this takes a lifetime. When he died, he was 72 years old. Okay, so his life was not as long as some others, but it took a lifetime for him to achieve his vision and his mission. And as I said before, he did this not really for himself. He did it for me, he did it for you, and he did it for future generations. And that's what his life was about. Second reason Henry Parks needs to be memorialized. He never had it easy. What he did with a lot of effort, all of his strength, talent, and ability. And he didn't get a break. There was no big break that came his way. Part of it was the time. Times were very difficult for Black people. There were certain things that if you were a person of color, you could not do. You weren't even expected to try to achieve certain things because really the message was all around you. Don't even try, you're not going to make it. Don't waste your time. This message was part of his life growing up. He did not come from a wealthy family. His parents were comfortable. They had really good jobs for being a Black couple. His father was a waiter, got promoted to being a porter. Then and got promoted to being a bartender at a fancy hotel for whites only. That was a really good job. His mother, when she wasn't taking care of the home, was a domestic servant. It was a really good job for a woman of color at that time period. They were not college people. They were working class people. There was no surplus of money to send Henry to college. There was no 529 plan. There was no funds available. So when he decided to go to Ohio State, that was of his own gumption. Now, why did he pick Ohio State? He grew up in Dayton, Ohio, just less than an hour from Wilberforce University. Ohio State was a Big Ten college, predominantly white. He knew in his vision, if he was going to compete in the white world, he needed to go and be where the white people were. Now, Ohio State was supposed to be progressive, okay, because they allowed blacks to attend college, matriculate, and get a degree. But the atmosphere at Ohio State was anything but inclusive. Now, there's a movie that just came out last week. It's called The Race. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's the story of Jesse Owens, who also went to Ohio State. In fact, Jesse Owens and Henry G. Parks Jr. were at Ohio State at the exact same time.
Wow.
And I can tell you, looking through my grandfather's yearbook, there weren't that many black folks on Ohio State's campus. So, Ohio State didn't have housing for blacks. If you were a student there, you didn't have a place to stay. You had to find some other place to stay. They really weren't concerned with where you stayed, you just weren't staying on campus. Maybe one reason why there weren't that many black students. How are you going to go to college someplace if you don't have a place to stay? So there was a couple, last name of Brassfield, had a house called the Brassfield House. If you see the movie, you'll see Jesse Owens going in and out of this house where he stayed. And there were various other black students there in the movie. You'll see it. Well, that was the Brassfield House. This is where Henry Parks stayed while he was at Ohio State, as did Jesse Owens. Okay, so Ohio State wasn't easy. Money was a problem and a challenge. Now, most of the time, Henry G. Parks Jr. was going back and forth, here and there, looking for jobs so he could earn money, put himself through college. And he worked just about any job he could get. Now, he wanted to be in business, so that was a goal. But at times, he took cleaning jobs, odd jobs, janitorial jobs, put himself through college. Okay, so he didn't have it easy. But at one point, he did actually cross paths with a very great lady named Mary McLeod Bethune. And she was heading up the minority division of the Works Program Administration that Eleanor Roosevelt had put together. And when she crossed paths with Henry G. Parks Jr., she was inspired by him, saw his brilliance, saw his potential, and put him in charge of the minority program, or the Negro program as they called it, at Wilberforce College in Dayton, Ohio. So that was about the biggest break that he ever got. And he was in charge of something. He was managing something. That was a significant encounter with Mary McLeod Bethune, because she was also probably the closest thing he ever had to a mentor. Now here you have a person of color who's trying to do something that no person of color has ever done before. And while we have many heroes in other venues, let's talk about athletes as an example, because athletes are very predominant in what we know as heroes of Black history. we have some awesome heroes. Jesse Owens, I mentioned, was one. Now, he broke the color barrier in athletics when he went over to Germany and got 4 gold medals. And he's phenomenal. But he did have help. He had a coach at Ohio State who opened that door of opportunity and said, I'm going to take care of things. All you need to do is run. And that coach stayed with him and went to Germany with him and helped him be the great athlete that he was to the public eye. Okay? Now you have Henry G. Parks Jr. in business. Who's going to open that door of opportunity for him? There was nobody. He had to do it completely on his own. Mary McLeod Bethune said, if we accept and acquiesce in the face of discrimination, we accept the responsibility ourselves and allow those responsible to salve their conscience by believing that they have our acceptance and concurrence. What she's saying is, don't quit and don't give up. You must face discrimination, face on, and not give up. That was the inspiration that she gave to Henry G. Parks Jr. And I believe that was really what he needed to carry him forward for the rest of his career. Another obstacle that made it very difficult for Henry G. Parks Jr. You're going to start a business, you're going to have workers, okay? You got to train your workers. The business he wanted started, he was going to need not just production line workers, but executives. Where do you recruit a pool of black executives in a time of segregation where blacks were not being groomed, trained, or educated to be executives? He had to groom all of his own people who worked in management and supervisory positions. He did a lot to open doors of opportunity for a lot of people. Because of his success, Henry G. Parks Jr. was able to show to the nation that black-owned businesses could be successful and compete on the same level as any other business in America. When he rose to success through his company, the country really took notice. And you can see on my board this picture of Henry Parks. The caption on Business Week says, "A Negro integrates his market." That's the headline on the front cover of Business Week magazine. This was big stuff. So now the nation is paying attention. What is this black person doing with this black-owned business? Being publicly traded, it has all kinds of revenues coming in, it's profitable, it's successful, it has a workforce of 250 plus people. Corporate America wanted to know, who are you, Henry G. Parks Jr.? And he would say, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to tell you. I'm a black man who's going to tell everybody in America that you need to provide equal opportunity employment for all minorities and women. Because if you don't do that, you're hurting everybody, including yourselves. And he took it as a very logical business approach. Discrimination is bad for business, pure and simple. So he was effective in getting into corporate America. He sat and served on numerous boards. This is a list of some of the boards that he sat on. This is a list of some of the awards and recognitions that he achieved. Most of these boards were whiteboards. When he got in there,
You all right? How short are you?
it's a picture of him. He's right in the middle. The only person of color. He convinced corporate America to start opening the doors to minorities and training them not just to work in their companies, but to be managers and supervisors. Put them in executive positions and invite them onto the boards. A lot of people don't know these things about Henry G. Parks Jr. because he was so preoccupied with achieving his mission and his vision, and it was not easy. It took his life's pursuit. Now, honestly, between us all, he did have to do some of this incognito, okay? He's promoting a business. He's promoting a product. He's not promoting a black product. He's promoting a product that all people can consume. All people can purchase, take it to the kitchen, cook it out, and serve it for breakfast. Okay? So, from time to time, people will say to me, I never knew Park Sausage was a minority-owned company. Or I never knew Henry G. Parks was a black man. Because he was a businessman first. He was an entrepreneur, and he knew that if he achieved success, America would listen to what he had to say. And what he had to say was not for himself, but it was for you and me and for future generations. So the third reason I can tell you he needs to be memorialized is I believe that we as minorities need to be the authors and the presenters of our own history. We cannot leave it for others to tell, because if we don't present our own history,